Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and one of the few short films left on my journey through John Ford's filmography. And joining me is one of my best friends, and honestly one of my longest friends, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Shane.
And we just watched a 20-minute short film from John Ford from 1957, and that's The Growler Story. But we'll get into that, because if you haven't tuned in before, we have 3 segments on the show. We have our coming attractions, so we'll dive into what's coming out this week, October 18th, 2024. The year of 2024 is almost over. And then we have The Growler Story, which we'll talk about, and then finally we'll wrap things up with recommendations. So this weekend's big release is Smile 2, because, it's October, horror movies coming out. And Kevin, you picked Woman of the Hour as the film that you wanted to talk about. What interested you in this?
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard about it until you told me about it.
Yep.
But just the little description, the pitch of it grabbed me a little bit. So it's about a serial killer.
Yeah, so the idea is, this is a directorial debut of Anna Kendrick, and she's a...
Debut?
Yes,
Okay.
she is on a dating show, and it turns out that one of the contestants is a serial killer. So, hopefully she doesn't pick that one, because I don't think that would end up very well for her.
No.
Probably not. And
She probably will, though,
of course she will.
because they're making a movie of it.
There you go. And this is coming out on Netflix. So this is
Okay.
going to be a Netflix original film. But I feel like I haven't seen Anna Kendrick in a whole lot lately. So this makes me happy that she's in something, because I do really like Anna Kendrick.
I haven't seen her in too much either, but I've liked her in everything I've seen her in.
There you go. Now, the film that I'm most excited for coming out this weekend is Anora, which won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival from director Sean Baker, who made Tangerine, The Florida Project, and Red Rocket. And this film is like a more modern, edgier, like Pretty Woman, the basic idea, or at least that's the vibe it gives off from the trailer. And it's about a young, very like New Yorker woman who is a sex worker who speaks Russian and winds up being chosen by this like obviously rich young Russian man who they get married so he doesn't have to go back to Russia. And of course, it definitely seems like his father or family is the mafia. So it looks like things are going to get complicated. And I don't know much more besides that. That's basically what the trailer paints a picture. But I've heard really good things about it. And I was tempted to pick Woman of the Hour because I'm a huge Anna Kendrick fan too. But it's just this one seems very intriguing. When you get around to seeing the film that won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, it could always be interesting because, Titan won the Palme d'Or, which is about a woman having sex with a car.
Okay.
And it was so much crazier than that, too, especially because she gets pregnant with a car baby.
Huh. It's like that episode of My Strange Addiction, but a little wilder.
A little wilder. Titan is wild. Oh, French people. French cinema get nice and weird.
I think I've seen the Anora trailer.
Yeah, it's been playing a lot recently, to be honest, in front of a lot of films. Crazy, though, was yesterday when I went to go see Joker, and AMC Marlton only played 2 trailers. I was like,
huh,
what?
I wish they did that more often.
I wish they did, too. The movie started, not even 8 minutes after the showtime.
That's the stuff.
That is the stuff, because Joker's a big movie. I was anticipating, 8, 9 trailers. So, here's to hoping that happens more often. But, we're here to shift gears into our short film, which is our feature to discuss. And this is The Growler Story from 1957, directed by John Ford. Of course, this is a short film focusing on Howard Walter Gilmore, who was the captain of the USS Growler. And this stars Ken Curtis, Ward Bond, and narrated by Dan Daly, all of which frequent collaborators at John Ford. Ward Bond has been in so many of these John Ford films. Ken Curtis is the son-in-law of John Ford. And lastly, we have Dan Daly, who was just in The Wings of Eagles that I talked about last week on the show. But this is focusing on a tragic, heroic death of a captain in World War II in 1943. But Kevin, what were your general thoughts on the Growler story?
So 1957, that's when you said this came out?
Yep.
Okay, I was actually wondering about that while we were watching this. It seemed like it was filmed in the 50s.
Yep.
My immediate takeaway as I started watching this is that it kind of, I just mentioned this too, I think you mentioned it kind of felt like a documentary.
Yes.
It just felt like we were right there with these people. At times there wasn't even a lot going on. We were just watching them go about their day. We watched them say goodbye to their families. We were looking at their log notes they were writing on the ship, on the submarine during their mission. I liked the way they paced it, especially because it was such a short film.
Yes, because this is like 21 minutes total. Right. So
even when you're watching them do something mundane, they don't dwell on it for too long.
No,
the movie didn't dwell on it for that long at all. I really liked that documentary and that documentary feel it had.
Well, and even
documentary feel.
Yeah, even when you can tell that it's not a documentary because like Ward Bond and Ken Curtis are very obviously like notable actors at that point, so like you see them as like, well, this isn't a documentary at this point, but it all feels like one, and it has a very like visceral kind of feeling to the film where it's like once we get onto the submarine and they're like bombing, like they're torpedoing ships and stuff like that, which I'm sure some of that's a mix of potential like actual footage. It seems like at times.
It did seem like.
And like there's some big explosions and stuff like that. And then you'll get these like very like close-up shots of them, and it's hard as an actor to hide in those moments. It's like it's putting you there. You got to really make sure that you're showing all those emotions, and I think Ward Bond did a fantastic job. He had a lot of shots like that in particular. But like it's interesting watching this on YouTube, and this definitely looked like this was taken off of like television or something at some point.
Right.
So like it's not the crispest.
At least in the format we were watching.
Exactly. It wasn't like the crispest visuals or audio, but it does feel like this camera was just wandering and watching them doing their thing. And it's not like staged in a way that it really feels like, oh, this is a movie we're watching. It's the kind of thing where it's like it's an up close and personal experience on a submarine, which is interesting. And then, you build up that emotion of, like, you show Ward Bond's character getting laid by all of his kids. He gets, like, six lays put on him before he winds up going off for this mission and stuff like that. And it has some real... It has, like, the pageantry of that military funeral at the end, and it has the music and everything, and it's hard not to get, like, oh, I felt that at the end.
Yeah, that was very well put together at the end there. And I'm glad you mentioned how they were kind of splicing in the war footage at times. I like the way they blended the footage together, because, I'm sure a lot of that was... archived footage from World War II.
Yeah.
Or just training exercises from the military, things like that they were splicing in. But there was one scene in particular, and I think I pointed this out while we were watching it. I saw the color shift during one of the scenes, and it looked like the time of day changed. It was dusk or dawn or something like that. But they color graded all the shots to match closer together to each other. It kind of just blended in the mixture of footage in a smart way for the time, especially for such a condensed little film. I like the way they did that.
But yeah, it's
and
important.
The close-up shots.
Yeah, because it's important too. Because like this is 1957. It's not like they had a ton of technology to help with these kinds of things. It's like some editor somewhere sitting there like actually manipulating film and stuff like that. The
smart way they did it. And then, like you said, when they would focus on an actor's face in a close-up shot, not only did it make you feel like you were right there with that character, but like you were just there on the boat.
Yep.
There was one particular shot I noticed. There was a guy, I guess he got shot. He started to stumble around. They lingered on that for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, after they had been cutting back between the wide shots of the archive footage and the footage they shot themselves, and then they lingered on him for a while, so you felt like you were there.
Exactly, and John Ford obviously was a fantastic director, and there's a lot of tension here, especially in like that climactic piece with like the ship coming along the side of them, the cross-cutting and stuff like that.
That ship coming along the side, that particular shot is where I was noticing the color blending.
Which at that point it's like they probably didn't have a ton of money to make this 20-minute film, and he got his son-in-law and one of his closest collaborators to be in the film, so they did a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And it's short, it's sweet, it's lean, it's mean, and it gets to the point and packs that little punch at the end. And I'm sure like they threw this into theaters before like films and stuff like that, and you get that like, because to be honest, like this film was only made like 14 years after this happened, so like a lot of this was still fresh. Korea was pretty fresh in the minds of people. This was still quite a few years before like Vietnam would start, so like this was still where the American people were at a point where it's just like it was very patriotic to be looking back and looking at these like war stories and stuff like that.
It kind of felt like a Navy recruitment ad at times.
Oh, it definitely probably was used that way.
Especially with that big old seal at the end.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. John Ford made propaganda films all through World War II and made some in Korea too. So
definitely came across that way.
Sure did, and it worked out that way. And I'm sure this rousing, like prideful kind of film's gonna get that kind of attention. But Kevin, do you have anything else to add about the Growler Story?
Honestly, I don't have too many thoughts on it. I just really appreciate the way it was put together. You could tell it was made on a very tight budget and probably tight schedule.
Yeah.
And they crammed as much as they could in, and it worked.
It's so interesting, because can you imagine like the military getting like Steven Spielberg to be making like propaganda videos for them? Because like that's what this like the equivalent of like John Ford was one of the biggest filmmakers at the time. It's just like, no, we got him making ads for us.
Now whether or not that is good, I don't know, but it worked as a film.
Exactly. And now getting into our recommendations for this week. So Kevin, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
Well, something I've actually just very recently seen for the very first time was the original The Fog from John Carpenter from 1980. I really like that. You know, now that it's October,
yes,
I'm trying
'tis the
to find
season.
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to find some spooky things to watch. That one took me a little bit by surprise. I didn't really know what to expect at all. I didn't even know what the plot of The Fog was. So, if anyone has not seen it takes place in this town that gets basically invaded by ghost pirate ships.
Ghost pirates.
Right. It was really cool. Also, the theme music kicked ass.
Yes.
That was one of the best themes I've ever heard in a movie.
John Carpenter.
By John Carpenter, yeah. His themes are just good.
Yes. And the theme's great. The subtlety of not fully showing you the pirates through almost the whole entire movie is great.
Another example of budgetary control there.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like John Carpenter was always best when he didn't have much of a budget, because you get creative with it. And there's just so many haunting scenes. And it has a really great cast. Like you have...
It does. Jamie Lee Curtis is always
and her
great.
mom.
And her mom.
Is in it. And
yeah, Janet Leigh.
Yep. She pops up in it for a bit. It's just a nice ensemble. Hal Holbrook as well, who's like the priest in it, who has some information that would probably be helpful for this whole entire situation, because got this like creepy curse that's on the town that brings in these pirates and stuff like that,
telling the stories to children and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lean and eerie film that just is 100% atmosphere and really, really works.
Never been more scared by fog, except maybe in
The Mist. The ending of The Mist. So I got some spooky kinds of films to recommend as well. So a newer film that I watched is Monster Summer, and it's a film. It's basically like a coming of age in like the Cape, in Massachusetts. It's the summer. Mason Thames, who is in the Black Phone, is just trying to play baseball, enjoy his summer, and then he believes there's a witch in town who's sucking the life out of all the children in town, and he must team up with a retired cop played by Mel Gibson and try to figure this out. So it has a lot of that like nostalgic like Goonies kind of feel, or It kind of feel. It's derivative. It's not something that's like super fresh, but I feel like it was a fun little film that hopefully some people pay attention to. This is as we're recording this, it came out this weekend and is certainly flying under the radar in a weekend where
that new. Okay.
Yeah, where it's like floating under the radar, where like Joker came out, so everybody's just paying attention to that. It seems like hating it specifically, but Monster Summer is a nice little flick that I think would be a fun time. And then last night rewatched all-time classic Ghostbusters. Just every time you watch it, it's just so funny. Bill Murray is so damn funny. Is Venkman an asshole? Yes. 100%. And probably a lot of, like, actual Bill Murray it goes into Venkman. But, like, his dynamic, the wide-eye innocence and just, like, oh my god of Dan Aykroyd is a lot of fun. And Harold Ramis as Egon, who's just like, I collect fungus. It's just so deadpan and fun. Ernie Hudson, which that was supposed to be Eddie Murphy.
Was it?
Yeah, and when he couldn't do the film, they cut the role a lot, which is why Ernie Hudson doesn't show up until like halfway through the movie. And he's just
That's kind
like
of disappointing.
Yeah, and he's just like, I've seen some stuff. I've seen some shit that'll turn you white. And just like he has that like grounded kind of feel, because the rest of them sarcastic asshole and then like really nerds. And the whole cast is great, from Sigourney Weaver to Rick Moranis is so much fun. Annie Potts is like, Ghostbusters, what do you want? And William Atherton, the biggest asshole of the 80s, who was an asshole in this and in Die Hard. And we hate him in both of them. Yeah,
Who's he in Die Hard?
He's the reporter.
Okay.
That asshole.
That's where I'll recognize him from.
Yes, 100%. And he's the EPA guy. The whole thing, it's like, things were all going great until Dickless over here turned off machines. They created an explosion. Is this true? Yes, this man has no dick. Perfect. Bill Murray. And the special effects are crazy. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's spooky. It has some like legitimate creepy moments. And then you have the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man part is so much fun. It's just a creative movie. And, still going, this franchise.
Was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man the first Ghostbusters? I always get the first two mixed up.
Yes, that's the first one, and the second one has the Statue of Liberty.
That's what
that they ride in to go up against. The Carpathian. What the hell's his name? Vigo. Where the actor's performance, like his line reading was, I guess, bad enough where they got Max von Sydow to come in and dub over his voice. Huh. Or they didn't like his voice and just liked his look, and they're like, we could get Max von Sydow to come in and do the voice of it. But no, the first Ghostbusters is nearly just perfect movie. It does everything that it wants to do. And that theme, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters.
Most 80s theme there is.
Yes. And it was supposed to be Huey Lewis in the News, and it didn't work out. And then they just ripped off one of his songs. It has the same beat as I Want a New Drug, or whatever. And it has that beat, and Huey Lewis made a bunch of money off of suing them.
Nice. Well, good for him.
Yeah, they came to a settlement, and Huey Lewis got a lot of money. Huh. So in the end, I think he was happy.
Yeah.
So, but that's another episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. We have about 2.5 months left of John Ford. We have about 10 films left, so we're making it. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on, as always, and talking movies with me.
Thank you.
You'll see Kevin next when we talk about Field of Dreams for the movie club, so come and check it out. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.